Dun City, Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
Sevadar Stew here with Charlene Kaur, and we already have two viewers today. I want to say good fateh to you, and yes, this is my first time speaking on here, but I think we had a little change of plans today, and we're just improvising while Harpreet is on his way. And yes, it's been an adventure producing this podcast with Charlene, and it's something that we've been learning as we've been going. But meeting meeting you, Charlene, a year ago or a year and a half, no, nearly 2 years now. I've known you. It's been a real inspiration, and to being able to collaborate with you on this has been you know, sangat. You've been real sangat to me, and anyone who watches this afterwards, I want to say to you, welcome to the congregation, because it's been quite a lonely experience as a Sikh convert, and it's all Maharaja's kirpa, that the blessing of how we learn, and that now we have this technology for us to connect and to interact. And I I really want to say thank you, Charlene. You've led the charge on this, and it's it's been an experience. So how about would you like to talk about like our our journey with creating and producing Sikhicast, and how we've got to know each other, and um, some people might be asking who is Stu. We know who Charlene is, so who's this English dude?
Okay, sure, yeah. So probably about 2.5 years ago, um, well, 3.5 years ago, I moved to or 3 years ago, I moved to Virginia and started going to Gurdwara in the Northern Virginia area, and ended up meeting up with um two folks. One people might recognize, it's Lathan Dennis Singh. He's pretty big on the internet. He's born in Jamaica, came to the U.S. as a student, and became a Sikh at the age of 22. He's now 77. He's a huge mentor of mine. And another fella, Udham Singh, and he's a council member at the Gurdwara we go to. But I had been, just hanging with those guys, and they were saying how it had kind of been a dream of theirs to have a podcast with English content, but neither of them were very technical or wanted to be the face of the podcast. They wanted me to help out, and at the time I was thinking, well, I'm not that technical. I don't know how we're gonna do that. And then, yeah, like 2 years ago, Stu just happened to be in the Virginia area. We met at, you know, on Facebook, and then, you know, when he came down, we got to meet up and started talking about how, Stu's like, oh, we need a podcast, and I was like, we've been looking into that. We just didn't have a tech guy. Well, it turns out Stu's awfully technical, and that's how Sikhicast was mostly born. And from then on, just been uh, tapping into the connections that we made over the years to find guests that would like to come on and talk about their journey into Sikhi. So we had, last time we had Josh Singh Vile. He's in Texas, and we had Kamal Virkor and her two girls, and a couple other people come on. And today we're supposed to have Harpreet, and like I said, maybe he'll pop on, maybe he won't, maybe he's having technical issues. We're not sure yet. Um, but it's pretty interesting how we were looking to do this, and everything we needed just came together. Uh, was in the hookup. Had to meet the right people at the right time and get this started.
Well, speaking of Kamalvir Kaur, I see that she's just posted in the comments there. Gurfate G, thank you so much. And we've also got a comment from Goody Singh, Gurfate G, and Jinu
Gino.
Kaur Jinu Kaur also Waheguru Ji. It's lovely to have you guys here interacting. Please, if you have any questions or comments, yeah, thank you, Kamalvir. Also, if you would like to come on, we can open this up in a moment, and like anyone who's interested, we can get as many guests on as are willing to come and chat. So please let me know. Put a comment in the chat box here if you'd like to come and chat, and I'll share the link.
And you can come in just voice. You don't have to show your picture, nothing like that. And then, we'll just maybe this is just gonna be a spitball session. If I don't know, maybe Harpreet's having connectivity. Who knows? Connectivity issues. But the show must go on.
Alrighty, so I just added the join link in the chat there. Hopefully we don't have any trolls pop along, but it seems that we've only got three people watching. But yes, if you'd like to come on, please do come and join us.
Yeah.
Everyone's welcome. Excuse me.
Go ahead, man.
I just I really do hope that Harpreet can join us. But if he's tied up, not an issue. We'll catch him next time. Goody Singh says happy to join, but I am new to Sikhi.
Not new.
But I'm not new to Sikhi. Well, whether new or old, everyone has a voice, and is if you'd like to share it, they're welcome to come and join the conversation now. So totally up to you. If you'd like to join, follow the StreamYard link, allow the camera and the microphone, and you'll be able to come on live with us. So we have a question here from Jinu. It says, since everybody always asks me, Stu, tell me how you got into Sikhi. Alrighty, thank you. So growing up in the suburbs of London, I was around Khalsa from the earliest of age. And funny thing, I always tell people, I thought that Sikhs were Brahmins. I thought that, those with the best hats must be at the top of the tree. So for the longest of time, I was convinced that Sikhs were Brahmins. And Kamalvir's about to join us. I'm going to bring her in just a moment after I quickly finish this story. So I was in that midst of that London mix of the old empire, around people from all around the world, and the amount of interactions that I had with things inspired me to look into the writings of the gurus. The first translations I got was the translations of the Sikh gurus by Max Arthur McAuliffe, and I would say that over the past couple of decades, I've gradually been incorporating more of Nanak's medicine into my life. So it's a journey. But yes, I'm more than happy to talk with that if you like. But I'd much prefer to bring in our guest. So Kamalvir Ji, please come in.
Hello, can
and
you?
and
Sat Shri
also
Akal, Vaheguru Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Fateh. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Goody.
Mic check.
Loud and clear. All good, all good. Terrific. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Can we ask you guys to please introduce yourselves to anybody who doesn't know you are, who's just tuning in, or is going to watch this later on? Kamalvir.
Vaheguru Vaheguru Fateh. Sorry, I was having a little bit of technical difficulty. My name is Charlene Kaur. I live in California in the U.S. I've been following Sikhi for the better part of a decade now, I believe. Yeah, that's me. Any questions? I'm pretty much an open book. I have 3 kids, also follow Sikhi. I was blessed with Amrit Shak in 2017, and yeah.
Mimi? I'm not sure if I'm still alive or not on this.
Hanji Veera.
Okay, good. I was like, my name is Gurinder Singh. I was born in Delhi. I grew up in Bombay, and I've lived in the United States for 30 plus years. And I was born into a Sikh family. My parents, grandparents, and their parents, as far as we can go back in history, are Sikhs, and most of them come from what is now called Pakistan side of things, of the country. So West Punjab, if you want to call it that. And I have a small store online called GoSeek, and I serve my community and a little bit of a broader community as well. That includes Muslims, Hindus, and anybody else that wants to wear a turban. So that's my service to the people. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know Guri for a while. When I first got into Sikhi, started tying the stud, I was looking for, um, you know, turban provider within the U.S. And so another good thing about Guri's, um, offerings are that they are more eco-friendly. He runs his shop on some uh, eco-friendly green values, which was really, really important to me. And I wanted something that was quality. And I have to say, I've had a lot of different stars from different places, and I still have them. They really last. They're soft. They're vibrant. And then, just after that, him and I, would talk and um, became friends, and really want to support businesses within the U.S. and Sikh businesses throughout the U.S. Um, and provide that as a resource to other Sikhs in the U.S. who are just coming into Sikhi and want to wear Guru's crown. Yeah, Go Sikh's the place to go, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a blessing to get a chance to serve so many people, including Dana, who was in Ireland, Dublin. She started a new to Sikhi community. I feel she had like hundreds of people on that platform. But I'm pretty sure that for some reason, family or work related, that she had to step away from that, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I just get sheer pleasure and contentment from hearing from someone who says, I was born into a Sikh family. I've not had Kish since I was a small kid. Now I'm in college, or I'm just starting a new job and I would like to wear my first turban. What a delight that is, right? I mean, I almost feel like giving them like free turban. Like, that's just a sheer joy in these kind of ways. There's other ways that I get joy, of course, serving anybody their turban, but someone that's going through a phase in their life journey and is adopting a turban, I'm happy to be there. And on the opposite side, I have quite a few friends that I've made through online communities that have exited being a Sikh, and they were kind enough to return the turbans to me rather than throw them away or do whatever they must. So
Wow.
that's much respect. They pay the money, they nicely package it and send it back to me, and we donate them further. Or sometimes I wear them. I don't. Contrary to other people's belief, I don't have a lot of new turbans. I wear people's returns, damaged turbans, whatever. But I only have a few themselves. Like I don't have many turbans, so they get used. They get repurposed So that's, yeah, the whole life cycle. People come, be part of our journey, and some people have to leave if they must. So we wish them well.
So on that token, Goody, if you'd like to say, what do you think, if you want to say, what do you think has people maybe taking a break from Sikhi or realizing it's not for them? Do you have an opinion on that, or what that could possibly be? Or have you heard people
Oh yeah.
say, why? And of course, like you said, we welcome everybody, and taking a break if you must, wish them well. Like, yeah, really, what's been your experience as to why? Because we'd really like to see if we can help those people troubleshoot. Maybe they didn't have enough English resources, and that's really something that we want to remedy, is having English platform with people that share their experience as a Sikh in the West.
So
So
I
go
think
ahead.
that's a great point that you bring. I feel there's this, without putting percentages, there's few categories that I feel fellow Sikhs have had to part ways or feel. Mostly it's about isolation, right? They are either not born into an Indian family Sikh, that means they're not your traditional Southeast Asian Sikhs. They are Western or born into a different culture. They could be blacks, they could be whites, they could be Asians of other descent, other communities, but they somehow feel very isolated in their, not accepted in their gurdwaras. And that's not the story for all the people. I feel some people are really well accepted by their communities in the gurdwara. So it's like, it just could be a mismatch, right? That they were not approaching the right people were not seeing them. So isolation is one category. I feel some people are in their journey across human life, and they want trying to find the best match philosophy or religion that fits them well. They've tried Judaism, or they've looked into Islam, they've looked into Sikhi, and they've come into Sikhi. They've really deep dived into it, put the kesh and wear the beard and everything, and then realize that that's not for them, and then they've moved on. So I feel that there's like they're in the search process, right? And some people in that process stick around. They have found a home and they're welcome. So isolation, feel that this is not a right fit, would be a second category. Uh, I don't know. I think third fit could be, if I was to generalize, is just feeling really a caste system. Uh, that's a very deep topic. But if they come from India and they go to their local gurdwaras, and there's even within the Sikhi community that is based out of India, they have a caste system. They see people like my mom knows what caste system. I don't know what the caste system is, so I would not be able to tell. But some of the elders seem to know based upon just their last name of someone, as to like if they're the Ahujas or the some Bhatiyas or something. They can tell as to what their genealogy or where their ancestry is. Are they high class? It's like almost like Brahmin kind of Hinduistic kind of class structure. And I feel that the people that felt left out were people that perhaps came from what I want to. I'm not using my own words, but I feel that they felt that they were not the right fit. They were amongst higher class people, and they were being left out or not being invited to events. So I've had that kind of conversation. So I have actually had conversations with people, just through emails or through chats, mostly through chats. So not much through emails. Emails are more like a, can I chat with you? And then once I get on chat, then it's all about chat.
Okay.
I think, if you don't mind me saying something, Kamovir,
Yeah,
the
come
one
on.
of the main issues that I've found of being born and raised in the States and going to Sikhi, and I know, Charlene, we've talked about before, like how I was introduced to Sikhi was a very kind of utopian type. I wasn't exposed to Punjabi culture very much. Although when first coming to Sikhi, I was very connected closely with two Gursikh families. Um, so in that process, the kids and I weren't exposed too much to Punjabi culture, which affects culture in the Gurdwara can a lot. And so then when I moved to California and I got a shock into the Punjabi culture and how inundated it is in the Gurdwara, that was a huge adjustment for me. And I still struggle with that when interacting with other people, when interacting with other Sikhs, is that the lack of understanding that Sikh culture and Punjabi culture are very different. And if you don't have that strong like sense of like this is not Sikhi, this is just people bleeding into Sikhi, then it can make it very difficult to go to the Gurdwara or to meet new people or to have those kinds of conversations. And I mean, there's a kind of a heartbreak kind of when it comes to that, honestly.
Thanks for sharing. Valid. These are all real stories.
Can you
I
hear
must.
me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Like to continue on that, I think well, I can only speak for myself, but when I came into Sikhi, from a non-Punjabi culture, you have no idea how many flavors of Sikhi there are, and all of them thinking they're right. That can be a big issue. Um, because you just dive in there. Like, luckily we have the internet, but you got so many different flavors of Sikhi. Like you have missionaries, you have Namdari, you have Nirankari, you have like Udasi. I could go on for half an hour, and it is confusing. It is very confusing because they don't always line up. Like, for example, Namdari, they are convinced that there is a living guru. Yeah, as we consider Sri Guru Granth Sahib as our living guru, they actually have a flesh and blood guru. And I remember one day I was listening to an Namdari channel because I love their kirtan. Yeah, and I was listening, and they were singing about gurus, and this guru came up with a name that I had never heard from, and I was like, Guru what? Like, did I miss something? Like, did I not study it right or whatever? And I think it's important to educate yourself on that as well. Like, be sure to know that there is not one size fit all Sikhi. Like, there are many out there who profile themselves as Sikh, and they don't necessarily always line up, and this can be confusing, I think. And then another thing is educate yourself, because it's not all Sikhi. There are cults out there. There's like a lot going on. There's a lot of dynamic. So educate yourself on the different sects, the different cults, the different whatever, the controversy that might surround them, and not go in their prejudice, but educate yourself on why that controversy is there, and then try to distill your Sikhi where you feel most at home, what resonates with you. And I'm not saying that mine is the best or yours will be the best, but at least there'll be a Sikhi where you feel at home and that lines up with you, with your expectations of a lifestyle and a religion, I think. And it would protect you maybe a little bit from disappointments later on. I'm not sure if I expressed myself right.
Waheguru, I would say that that was beautiful, and if I can please add to that a little bit, I was explaining a little bit of my history before I got cut out there for a moment, but adding to what you've just said, when I fully embraced studying the medicine of Nanak, it was actually here in the United States and totally away from the Punjabi community. So I've been so fortunate to have many years developing a relationship with the Guru completely cut off from Sikhs, and it's given me a perspective which I think is something that's so unique in that I don't have any other human beings directly trying to tell me what the guru is or isn't saying, and I feel that's really what we're all supposed to do in terms of like we don't need a human being in between us and Maharaj. We've got the guru there, so that I definitely can relate to some of what you were saying, and that yes, it is about being aware of all of the many different deadas and cults that are involved and in the peripheries, but but to sort of I think being immune to the influence of other Sikhs, I think is quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. That Sikhi is a sangat, but your relationship with the guru is personal. And so, someone may be making comments about how you practice Sikhi. Take the good from everything, right? And as you guys, maybe you're aware of these different groups, and maybe you got to experience them in person, or just take the best thing out of them. And sometimes, I've gone into the different groups: Dodra, AKJ, Taksali, Nihangs, Singh Saba, things like that, and just taking from them what, the good things, and being like, it was a real blessing to interact with this person or that person. And along my journeys, got to come into contact with some really enlightened folks, some high souls, um, who who steered me in different direction, or steered me um, in the direction that I was headed. Meeting them. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. You didn't meet that person by accident. Vaheguru is speaking to us all the time, but are we listening? And so oftentimes I would have a question maybe about a Shabad and what's the real meaning, because sometimes the translations aren't exact. They don't really do the Guru's writings justice. And so I would go and go into these groups, and sometimes I would find the answer. They put the translation of the Shabad up on a screen on the wall, and I'd find the answer to my question in that Shabad in the translation. And if I hadn't gone that day, I wouldn't have, if I hadn't gone to Gurdwara that day, or that Samagam, or that home divan, I wouldn't have seen that. Or, just happened to talk to someone, and during the course of our conversation, they say something that is the answer to the question I'd been asking of Guruji. He sends people to deliver his messages. So, I think something that comes along with having a personal relationship with the Guru and with Guru Granth Sahib Ji is eventually you develop a type of discernment. Since you know his word, and his, we'll use the word nature, even though, a call is not born and he doesn't die, so therefore does he have a nature? But that the nature of God, you can discern what is, and knowing the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, you can discern what is really from him, and what is just maybe some man-made additions, or um, isn't for you or isn't for your path. And that's not a judgment on anybody else. That's just, like I said, that's your individual relationship with the Guru. And the deeper you get into it, the more you can see how he's working in your life to mold you and perfect you every day. Every day is a new day. Every day is a new day to be a better Sikh, um, and move forward in your journey.
Yeah, along that band, I try to see like Maharaj, actually Vaguruji more as like an energy, right? So like you're saying, like maybe nature, whatever, like the energy that is in us all, the force that's in us all. If something we can feel if we take the time to listen, okay, is this the right thing or is this the wrong thing? You know, we all can if we're honest with ourselves. And yeah, everybody is going to have a different comfortability. That's why everybody breaks off into different sects, and people make their own things, their own ways of doing things that work for certain people. And like you said, taking the good things and knowing the Sakhis, knowing the history, the Itihas of Sikhi, and what is right and what is wrong according to what our gurus have said, and meshing what we know feels right with that, it will always steer you in the right way, you know? It'll steer you from these groups, these cults, it'll steer you from those places if you really listen and take time to learn what our gurus have actually said, you know?
100%.
Yes, beautifully said. I'm really just so like thrilled to having you guys on here speaking with us. I really don't know what to say, but welcome and thank you so very much. This is beautiful. It's such a blessing. I feel that this is echoes of things to come. That Sikhi is the next big thing. That most definitely there's going to be a tidal wave of so many lost souls that will find that this is the way to remove suffering. And that's really what it's like. The whole reason that I looked into Sikhi and like continue to every day is just to pull that suffering out of my heart.
And just remember that, when you come into Sikhi, now you're in Guru Nanak's house. In Guru Nanak's house, the blessings are unlimited. So every day you're just, I wouldn't say waiting around, but keep your eyes open for Guru Nanak's blessings. Uh, because, like I said, in his house, we don't want to be in any other house. We're in Guru Nanak's house.
And I have a question kind of for the group because I just am appreciating that we're all here as well. Um, I don't know if it's been just my experience or if you guys have experienced this as well. When speaking to people, when doing maybe like street pachar, kind of, you know, how people usually just ask questions, especially for those of us who are, you know, lacking melanin and dying at a star, people feel more comfortable asking us questions, I feel like most of the time. And in terms of people asking about Sikhi, I feel as though, at least in the Western world, people think that anyone that doesn't follow Christianity has to follow their faith to the T. Otherwise, they're not, you know, good, either good Sikhs, good Muslims, good Jews, whatever. And I constantly find myself having to explain to people Sikhi is like any other faith where everyone follows to their comfortability and where they are on their path. But it seems to be something that is asked or kind of pointed out a lot, even I guess from other Sikhs. You know, if I do something, I have a problem cursing, I'll admit it. And so people have said, oh, well, you know, you're not a Sikh because, you know, you're not supposed to do that. I don't know if anyone else has ran into that kind of things.
Absolutely. And I think that's another reason we wanted to create this platform because, uh, Punjabi Sikh platforms or platforms which are a majority in the Punjabi language, there are a lot of those, but not in English and not, all of us right now, we're currently living in the United States. And especially with like, um, using that type of language and understanding that it doesn't make you a bad person or a person who isn't educated enough to use different words. It's part of our culture. Some of that is part of our culture, the way we express ourselves through our first language, which is English. And then, Guri and Gino are on here, and English wasn't their first language, but just saying like, I think it's perceived differently outside of our American culture, and like me myself, and just saying, I'm most closely associated with the Nihangs. Most of my mentors were Nihangs, and they're aligned to the Buddha doll, the 96 Kuri under Baba Joginder Singh Ji. Um, and you spend a lot of time around them, and if you haven't spent a lot of time around Nihangs, they cuss. It's part of their culture too. Like it's not all the time, but when they're talking with each other, they talk with each other in their way. And I think that it's similar in the American culture. Like when I'm hanging out with traditional Punjabi Sikhs, um, I might not um, use that part of my culture and talk that way with them because I know it's not something that they're familiar with or would understand or appreciate. But when I'm talking with American Sikh converts and we get to really get talking and stuff, you know, we're expressing ourselves in our first language, which does include some cultural use of those words. And it's not malicious and it's not dirty and it's not, um, meant to sound uneducated or like I said, filthy. It really is just us being comfortable and expressing ourselves in our first language. And being comfortable is such a huge part of feeling accepted in Sikhi. Feeling comfortable to say how you feel and express yourself in your first language.
And there's
And
nothing
like I
worse
said,
than somebody pretending to be pious. I mean, I've definitely gone through that time trying to pretend that I'm holier than I am. But I'm a munna. I have a shaved, cut hair. I don't wear a turban. So yes, I often get asked, when am I going to be a real Sikh, or what am I playing at? So, but yeah, it, it's also very personal, isn't it? All of this is something that it's not really for the masses. It's all an individual, but I suppose Nanak has something for everyone.
I don't know. My experience is that reception of being a Sikh, it depends a lot on the state you're in. Like when I lived in New Mexico, that was, and I had nothing to do with like the ashram there. I was like, going to the Gurudwara in Albuquerque, not the 3HO. Um, but it is Sikhi paradise when it comes towards street parchar. Everybody was sweet. Everybody wanted to know everything. I would get stopped. I would get asked to get into pictures with them. And I'm talking about, like non-Sikhi people. Everybody wanted to know. I would do Nam everywhere, everywhere. And afterward, people would come up to me and ask me, like, what were you doing? What were you saying? It was very, very Sikhi friendly. Now, California, because it is a Sikh hub, everybody knows there was very little that I could add to. They already knew. Yeah, like white people or non-Sikhi people, let me say non-Sikhi people, they already knew. They were educated on Sikhi. I would get a lot of positive from Sikh in California, being curious as to how did you come to it, and it's so nice. We're so happy to see you. I'm in Indiana now. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to know anything. And I mean, like nobody would give me a second glance, neither malicious or nice. Like I'm sort of a non-entity. And that could just be, I don't know, maybe the overall mentality of Indiana. I don't know. But it differs a lot as per state, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree with that. And I think you're also in a unique place. I'm in California now, but being in Indiana, the Sikh population there is growing currently. I do know that. But also, there's another cultural kind of enigma there, maybe making you a little bit, even though different, you're less different. The Amish is already there. The Amish has already been in Indiana for so long. They people see the Amish show. It's like, okay, one more different thing, right? And maybe you're not directly connected, correlated with them in people's minds, but already living there. Because I've been to Indiana. I lived there for about 6 months before, and there's already a different group of people, if that makes sense. So it's like to Westerners and anybody else just kind of thinking like, oh, it's just another different group of people, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think it's very much an environment of keep walking, don't make eye contact, and not just toward me. Like in general, people are much more closed into themselves, I think, than, for example, in New Mexico. It's maybe, I don't know,
I think the
just
Midwest has a lot more uh, strict kind of Christian, mostly upbringing. And so, in an attempt to not be bigoted, it's more of just keeping to themselves. If that it's seen maybe more polite, and people not wanting to be rude and ask a weird question or not wanting to stare or whatever. Most states in the Midwest are very, very, very Christian, and there's not a lot of openly mixing of different groups, right?
yeah, you
So,
could be
Yeah,
right because yeah,
so in an attempt not to be rude, they just keep to themselves.
yeah,
it
it's like
could
really
be. Yeah, you go
live.
ahead, Charlie.
Oh, sorry. It's a really live and let live kind of situation, I think, like you're saying, and uh, also I think it has to do with the generation of the people. Like I feel that people who, so I'm 38, people sort of my generation and the ones under it, they seem a little bit more open to asking strangers questions or being curious and um like maybe don't make eye contact, but then you happen to, so I just smile and then people feel welcome to come over and ask a question. Um, you know, I feel like yes, dude, generations versus elderly people, you smile at them, they smile at you, and then they'll say like, "Oh, I really like your hat." And I say, "Oh, thank you,"
I really
There's
like
no
that thing
use.
you did with your, and they can't find the word. That
Yeah, and it's like it's cool. You're not gonna correct them, be like, it's a turban. You're gonna be like, thank you, and maybe it'll start a conversation, or they just smile and then they move on, and they just wanted to say something to you, but they weren't sure what, so they were like, hey, I like your hat. Or something that's happened to me probably a half dozen times or more is that I wear my kirpan openly because different states have different laws about knives, and I'm like, if I'm wearing it openly, I'm not trying to hide it from you. um, and it's not a small one. It's 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 on the bigger side, not a big one. And I've had security guards and cops just walk up to me, kind of give me the up and down with their eyes and go, "Cool knife," and then just walk away. Or give me the up and down in the Target where I'm wearing Bana and I'm Jude shopping like they are, and they look at me and then they, all right, and then just move on. Um, but I will say that it definitely is. There's something to when you're just walking around you're by yourself, being the only, turban wearing Sikh wearing a kirpan in like the middle of Pennsylvania or Virginia or whatever, versus when you're walking around with several other turban people who may also be wearing kirpan. It's just like, oh, this isn't just one weird lady. This is like a group of people that this is just another group. Like Kamalvir was saying, like the Amish, it's like, okay, this is a group of people. They have their own thing. This isn't just like one weirdo who thinks it's Halloween every day.
True. Yeah. And you might be onto something like when you guys say like maybe it's a politeness thing because it's not even an hostility. It's like a total non-acknowledgement. It's not like they're giving me angry looks. They don't want to know anything about me. Though I have to say, in Indiana was the first and luckily only time that I was asked by somebody, "Why aren't you a Christian like everybody else?" And I didn't even go into that, like I'm not going to go there. Um, but it could be because that's just the way they are, not just towards Sikhi, but a form of politeness. Like you don't do that. You don't ask people why they are something or why they look a certain way. It could be that.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, a closed society in the Midwest, if you think about it. They're not really encouraging. I'm sure you can meet a lot of people that have never traveled outside their state, even their city. Um, just having family from there and traveling through there, living in there before, especially when it comes to white Americans. Um, a lot of small town people, a lot of people like that, they're not encouraged to really leave. So they stay in this closed community, and
Mhm.
so when they see something different, like you said, it is a different form of politeness to just not acknowledge the difference. So just pretend you don't notice and be polite, you know?
What about you, Goody? Like, you're in California, and as being, um, forgive the nomenclature here, a brown turban bearded man in California being a practicing Sikh. Like, how do you feel you've been approached or treated? Like, if you could go into that a little bit.
Yeah, happy to share. I feel, well, I went to college and grad school in the Midwest. So I was probably one of the only Sikhs in town, or probably one of two or three Sikh men, turban wearing men, in in town, depending on which year you want to look at. I think it was tough. This was around Gulf War, a later 90s, early 2000s. So it was tough being there. But ever since I moved to California, it's just been like a complete shift. It's like everybody knows who Sikhs are. And if they don't know they're Sikhs, they've seen one before. So it's not a shock to them. So that's the good part of being in the Bay Area. And also, secondly, I think over the years, I have developed some sort of I am belonging here, deal with it. I'm not going anywhere. So I kind of have a presence that says, I'm walking and I'm not bothered by your looks, because I'm looking at you too. It's like I feel that, if they look at me funny, I will look at them, and maybe I'll smile, I'll wink, you know. But sometimes if they're just looking and they're just staring, I'm like, I gotta look at you straight up. I'm not gonna shy away from it, and in a non-confrontational way, right? I'm just gonna look, and maybe there'll be a smile at a later point. But so I have that kind of I think there's more of a gusto, kind of like some inner strength that comes out and says, I belong here. This is my country as well. And if you don't know, then or if you feel somehow just magically, if they feel that I should leave their country, I'm not going anywhere. So, but for the most part, California Bay Area has been really nice. So I don't get that sense. I live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of people of color that live here. A lot of my relatives get scared, but I feel far more safer here than in another neighborhood that has got not that many people of color. Then I would stick out like a sore thumb. So
I mean, that would definitely be my advice to, and I have when talking to um, all Sikhs, people who come from a Sikh family, and or people who are new to this country, or people who have just become Sikhs, and they're just maybe now becoming visibly Sikh. So wearing the dastar, or being Panch Kakare, or having taken Amrit or received Amrit, is like, just own it. You belong to the guru now, so just own it. And I think, like you're saying, that gusto, like, just own it. You like, this is who I am. I
yep,
am here.
yep, exactly.
And I think people can feel that vibe, and they recognize that vibe. They recognize that they're like, oh,
Yeah,
this person is who they are. Like, just be. There's a word for it. I won't use it on air. So like, just like, no one can mess with that, because you know who you are.
yeah,
And I think that confidence also inspires people. If they can feel that vibe, that confidence, it does
yeah,
draw people to you, and to feel that they're able to ask questions. And I think, especially as English speaking Sikhs, and then I think maybe it was Kamalvir that mentioned, like, oh, they might notice that we are the ones of us that are obviously American. People were like, oh, maybe they always had questions, but now that they see somebody who they're like, oh, they're from here, they maybe do feel more comfortable to ask us questions. And being in a country that, you know, currently and has been a majority, people identify as Christian,
yeah,
especially us who come from a Christian background, we're able to use the verbiage, the vocabulary to explain six concepts to them in a way that they can understand or connect the dots or draw similarities between their faith and our faith. And we
Yep.
tell them, like we're don't believe in converting. We don't think that our religion is superior. We think that, many paths can lead to God and everything. And, maybe they're not going to walk away from that conversation feeling that way too, that, okay, these people are, you know, on their way to God or anything like that. But, maybe open their minds a little bit or just the fact that they might have a more positive understanding or outlook on six because they're like, wow, that person, they they feel like you understood them and know where they're coming from. And so it made them feel a little bit more open or comfortable with listening to your point of view and what you experienced.
Add
Going off of, sorry to jump in, I feel like the confidence as Baji was talking about, walking around feeling like, this is my space where I live as well. I feel like this is somewhat of a unique thing in Sikhi and something I've tried to put in my girls, which I think like Maharaj Kirpa have been very successful at, is I don't think we talk enough about that we're self-sovereign, right? So us individually are sovereign human beings within Sikhi, right? So literally, if we follow our belief system, every piece of land that we walk on, we own that space, right? In that we're owning that space in that moment, and we have every right to be there, just as anyone else does. And I feel as though us, especially the ones that choose to outwardly identify as Sikh, for us to walk that way and own that is very important, because that isn't really practiced in any other faith. And it's such a special gift I feel that we have to be confident like that. Um, I've always been a pretty outspoken person, um, but I don't feel scared in spaces usually, like Vanchi, I most times openly carry my kirpan. They are not small. And no one really tries to like say negative things or be mean to me or come up to me or question me. And Guru Sahib has given us that gift that, we do stand out. People are not going to, at least openly, probably target us. And when they do, I mean, they have, there has to be some kind of uh, thing behind that, And I faced people trying to convert me, but I haven't faced people like maybe trying to attack me or anything like that. I know it does happen to like our brothers and sisters who um, tie to stars, but maybe not who are like necessarily openly Amritari, if that makes sense.
Well, Guruji knew what he was doing when he gave us the sarup, right? The bakshish of the sarup. So bakshish is, I'm sure you guys all know, but just for everybody listening, bakshish is specifically a gift of God or gift of the Guru. And giving us this sarup, this open appearance, and that it does have its own energy. And I mean, I'll just speak, we have a couple ladies on here, some cores. Um, Guruji said men and women are equal, but in our culture, in all cultures, like we have to admit that still in this world, women are not seen as the equal of men. Women are seen as maybe the weaker sex or whatever. But Guruji elevated us by giving us all the same sarup and especially carrying the shastra, the weapon. I think especially in this culture, like seeing a woman openly carrying a weapon, um, whether it be a kirpan or whether it be like, a pistol or something, they're saying, oh, okay, like no one's gonna mess with her. Like she knows who she is and and we see that we mess with that, we're gonna be in some trouble. It's like I said, there's a term with it for it, but like it looks like, yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that person. That person that looks like that would be a bad outcome for me. And like I said, not that we're a threat to anyone. Sikhs are not a threat to anyone. Sikhs don't strike first, we strike back.
That's true. And I think one of the most important thing, and it's going to be something that is a learning phase for everybody, be it people who are here, people who are in any country. I feel it's that confidence that says, you know what, I'm not, I belong here, but I'm not a threat to you, right? So there's difference between confidence and being threatful, right? So, and I just feel, I don't know, I feel there are times when I'm wearing a patka, because if I ride my motorcycle, I do wear a helmet. In my state, we're required to wear a helmet, and I'll still wear it. But uh, there's a different level of confidence that comes when I'm wearing a turban versus not wearing a turban.
And I think that's really unique and so personal because I've heard from other people, and we all know of stories, heard stories from other people where the opposite is true, where they are fearful, or when they tie a star, when they choose to stand out, when they choose to identify as a Sikh, why a lot of people choose to maybe step back or change those parts of themselves, because they fear they're more in fear, or they're more self-conscious instead of confident, if that makes sense. And yeah, as Sikhs, we do walk that line. And I think for us, especially us have been following for a while, or for certain people, I guess I just want to speak for myself, it's a very natural thing to be that confident and know that I'm not threatening anyone, but I'm there to serve everyone. And that's why I'm confident. Like, trying to be, whenever I go out, that pillar for people, is what gives me the confidence. Because I know I'm not there to harm anyone. And I'm there to just help the people around me. And I do feel very confident from that.
Yeah, ab-
Kamalvir,
absolutely true. Thank you.
Kamalvir, do you think maybe it's easier for a Caucasian, say, to be confident and to walk around like that than it would be for a Punjabi, a darker skinned person, to walk around with a kirpan on them? Because I think it's like two things. Like often not wearing kirpan, excuses are used that I don't personally encounter. Like most situations with kirpan, they're either a non-issue or negotiable. Yeah. um, then you see like people saying, "No, I can't wear kirpan because my boss, because my this, my that." And then I think like I don't wanna, like I need to walk in somebody else's shoes first. Like, is it maybe easier? Do we get approached different in kirpan wearing situations than maybe a Punjabi person? Like, are we seen less threatening? Now, personally, that's me. I would be more afraid of myself than I would be of a Punjabi person. Because if I see a Punjabi person with a dastar and a kirpan and whatever, it looks kind of normal. If I see a little old lady with a turban and a big knife on her hip, as if I didn't know about, I'd be worried. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and I 100% Benji see where you're coming from, and I do think it is 100% on perception, right? So perception, from the outside public, so people not within our community, whether Caucasian or Punjabi. So I think for a lot of the Punjabis that do feel, I'm just speaking from what I've heard, right? From what I've heard, personal stories, um, relationships that I've cultivated with different people, um, that a lot of people that immigrate here from other countries, whether they're sick or not, the pressure to assimilate is so strong that they don't want to do or say anything that's going to rock the boat in any way, shape, or form. And so I do know a lot of Amritari Punjabi Sikhs that do not wear their kirpan openly, or that, modify for work, or don't want to speak up, or don't feel like they can speak up, or just want to go with the flow, for some indoctrinated fear. And it's valid for them. For them, that fear is 100% valid. I'm not saying that it's not. But
Yeah.
I think that that's where that comes from. And then there's a lot of other, more younger, I would say, um, Punjabi Sikhs that feel the exact opposite. That feel like, no, this is, I'm going to speak up for myself. And, that's an amazing thing. And I always try to encourage Punjabi Sikhs to stand up for themselves, or I will personally stand up for them, because I do know, unfortunately, especially speaking to Caucasian people outside of the Sikh community, that unfortunately they're more apt to listen to my voice. So I do try and correct situations when I come in, when I encounter them, because that is a real thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Has anyone else seen kind of the pressure to assimilate cause a lot of issues for people?
You know, I think, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Loud and
Yeah.
clear.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's, there's a lot of good things about how progressive our society here in the US has become. So I don't feel like that pressure to assimilate is as heavy as it was, say, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, like keeping up with the Joneses, that whole, or, people immigrating to this country and feeling they must assimilate in order to be accepted as American. I feel like now more than ever that I've seen in my life, uh, people are encouraging um, non-European cultures that come to this country to maintain their culture, be who they are, and also share it with us. You see a lot of these like cultural festivals, and people, all different kinds of people are going to those. Like a Punjabi fest, or like a Lebanese, cookout, or like Afghan Refugee Day, where they're getting to share. I think people are more open and empathetic and compassionate to people who don't want to lose who they are, and they do miss their home country. Um, but for a lot of them, they can't go back, and that's another story. And wanting to learn about those cultures and understand their neighbors, I think I see a huge boom of that. Um, and so I think that pressure to assimilate, especially in order to be considered a real American, it's not as bad as it was. It's not as bad as it was. Or especially the whole, which I hate the most, just learn English. English is a very difficult language. But yeah, I don't think that there's so much that pressure to assimilate. And even us who grew up here, and this is our root culture, um, adopting the Sikh culture in order to, become um, closer to our faith, um, even though we might be seen as odd by um, some people just, they don't know what Sikhi is in general, or the history of it, or that or that a majority of Sikhs are from northern India, that they might automatically just be like, oh, somebody who believes something different, fine, like And it's just accepted that different people exist in this country. It's a reality. Yeah, so the pressure to assimilate, I think that's it's not as bad, and it's getting better. The only caveat to that, I think, would be kids in schools. I think that's where we're still seeing a lot of that discrimination or pressure to be like everybody else.
I agree with you, Ben, like 100% coming from the perspective of Americans in terms of the pressure that we put on others to assimilate, and that we are, as a collective, even with the I don't know, political culture as it is the last 8 years or so, we are a lot more encouraging of people to share their cultures. I'm talking about pressure within the Punjabi community that they kind of put on their family members or themselves, or they feel that is needed to be American, air quotes intended here. Um, uh, Such as things like, telling their sons or brothers, you need to cut your hair, or, you know, um, the pressure that they put on to do the American culture things to fit in. The assimilation pressure I'm talking about is coming from within, the community itself. Because I do agree that as a whole, Americans are much better now than they were 20, 30 years ago about being accepting and understanding and eager to learn about other cultures.
Okay, so I have seen a lot of that, but I'm wondering if the best person to answer that question is Goody.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I'm presenting it here.
So I I think the so I want to give one story of my experience. This is decades ago. I graduated in May, like everybody else that graduates in May, and all my classmates found jobs before May. I I interviewed starting in December, 5 months before graduation, and no company would hire me because I was in the Midwest, and every interview was just looking at me and my turban more than they were listening to my answers, and it was pretty obvious for someone who was sitting and speaking. And so at times when my relatives would that lived in the US said, like, maybe you have to cut your hair and that'll be easier for you to find a job. And I did not listen. I mean, it was tough. I did not listen, but I got one of the best jobs that one could ever ask for. I got it in September, uh, many months after graduating, and I stayed in that company for 5.5 years. So, and was promoted 3 times within that 5.5 years. That no one else has been, that they couldn't remember, had been promoted 3 times in that short time. So great story from my point of view. But what's real now in 2024 is, like someone just mentioned, that schools still have bullying, and especially as Sikhs that uh, start to get jobs in many parts of the United States or Canada or wherever, and they move to more new areas where there's less sangat, and they send their kids to schools there where the kids have not seen a Sikh kid with a patka or a chunni or whatever, and they uh, harass the kids. And what I've learned from some of the parents that I've talked to, uh, a lot of parents buy podcasts from me, from my website. So that's pretty evident that their kid uh, wears patka. But there are times when I talk to some parents and I have to slightly nudge them to have this conversation, because I see them, they have kids with podcasts, they put the pictures, and then 3 years later, the kid has cut their hair. And I'm like, wow, cut. So I somehow talk to them, get them, create a safe space to talk to them and say, hey, was there something that went wrong? Could we have helped? And they just said that they just could not fix it. Fix means the harassment and the bullying in school, right? You talk to the principals, get the teachers involved, get the complaints to the other parents, but kids are kids. There is a mob mentality at times, and the only two options was to move the kid to another school, perhaps starting that cycle again, or um, they took the what seemed like a safer route at that point, was to cut the cash, let the kid finish school, and then make a decision. The kid can make a decision when they grow older if they want to keep the hair or not. And a lot of kids have gone through this cycle in the United States, and that's not something new. I have kids that write to me and say, as I mentioned earlier, they graduate, they say, I got my first job, I've never worn a patka or a turban, I would like to wear one. And so that's a very nice thing for them to start with. But I feel parents make that decision for the safety of their kids. And whether it's, if there is an incident that causes that, or if it's a group decision by elders in the family saying, you know what, we live in the middle of nowhere, there's no other Sikhs, it's just safe to say that kids are not going to wear a patka until they grow up and older. And now you can see that in gurdwaras that the father has a turban and the kid has no kesh. That's pretty evident in quite a lot of gurdwaras nowadays.
Oh yeah,
But
that's common.
unfortunately, like not wearing a patka or cutting their hair is not going to be a guarantee for them not being bullied, because it's like a bigger issue, that whole bullying thing. Because they'll find something else. They'll find something else. So yeah, it's a sicky thing because we profile ourselves more. But like I said, cutting that hair is not going to be a guarantee. And
Yeah, I'm
how much,
100% agreeing with you, Benji, on this
yeah,
one.
how much are you going to give in? How much are you going to give in? Like how much of your personality are you willing to surrender? Because they'll find something else. And at a certain point, and I know it's easy for me to say because I've never dealt with that, nor with my child going through that. But at a certain point, you have to make a stand. And even if that means getting them to another school, moving to another city, I would,
Yeah,
but rather than sign away. In the end, I only answer to Guru, nobody else.
yeah, and I that totally makes sense. I'm not saying that, but each individual case is unique. Each person's strength that they have, whether it's family strength or guru's strength, is for them to feel. If they themselves have no strength in making that, and they find the easiest solution is to do a certain way, then our job is to my job, and I've learned this, it takes a long time to get through this, is to just not judge people, because I don't know their pain, and
I
it's so
know.
hard to
I'm not
predict.
judging them. Please don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
But in a way, I think, like, aren't they making things worse?
yeah, it could be. And no, that's a very, again, it's a very personal thing. We never ourselves been in that situation. I feel if I had a child, and I don't have a child, but if I had one and that kid got beat up every day, I would definitely at some point, if moving was not an option, I would definitely consider it. And if things did not get any better, then we grow the cage back in, and we would start doing some karate or
I
taekwondo.
think I think I feel like I'm in a unique situation. Benji, you can correct me, Charlene, if I'm wrong on this. So I have a white son who keeps his case and is tied to star throughout school, and I also have two brown daughters who have tied their star, and throughout school they had patka in the early days, obviously, but they've had Distaria ever since that time, and. They did go to an all white school, pretty much, and they did get bullied. And uh, so it was never an option. And Baji, I totally agree with you. There's no judgment path. But I think it would be a great idea to kind of, I don't know, form some kind of support group or something for parents to let them know. Like, if these kids are not being bullied for their dastar, for their parka, for their case, they're going to get bullied for being brown. They're going to be bullied for being short, for being moti, for being. Uh, you know, having dark eyes or having a lot of like body hair, for being fast, being slow, being smart, being dumb, kids are gonna bully a kid no matter what. Bullying is part of, I don't know, I think it's culture worldwide. Kids get bullied in school. And so, I mean, I was bullied growing up. I wore glasses and had to have special things in school. And so I was bullied for those kinds of things growing up. And kids are always going to find a reason to bully you. And I feel like we need to support maybe these parents, these kids, or something to say, like what Benji was saying, no matter what's going to happen, your kid's going to get bullied. Now we're making it a big deal because it's about the kids, it's about a turban, it's about something unique specifically to us and our religion and our culture. But if we tell our kids now that's okay to sacrifice that because people are going to be mean to you. When I tie my kids to star, I remind them people have lost their heads, so we have the right to tie this. People have died, our brothers, our sisters, people have been scalped, so we have the right to keep our case. So if we sacrifice that people have fought for so hardly for us to be able to have our crown on our head, if we sacrifice that because some kids, for lack of a better word, want to be assholes, then who are we?
Yeah.
You know, like
Okay.
who are we?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
well said.
There is a tendency, there's something going on in the Netherlands right now, where I come from. And it's a situation where children will surround another child and force it to go on its knees and apologize for nothing, for whatever, like say sorry, say sorry. And many times that child will be beaten up, and children will stand around it. And you're talking about like 12 years old, 10 years, 12 years, 13, 15. And they will stand up and film that. They will make videos of that, post them online. And I was watching an interview with a young man, 15, who shares those videos. And they asked him, like, yeah, but don't you feel bad about doing that? You know, like sharing that. And the child was like, totally desensitized. Like, no, yeah, it's bad for them, but it doesn't really touch me. Yeah, so I don't really care. It's funny. That's why I share them. And it was like almost a sociopath thing. And I think like what Kamovir said, like it's a bigger issue. It's of course it touches us because we are Sikh, but it's a bigger issue. And I think more than anything, like what she said, we have an obligation to stand up and say like, no, we're not going to back off. Like we maybe we're the first ones, but we're not going to back off. We're not going to give in to this, because if you do, you're enabling. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
I think that's fair. You are correct in your own way. But I think the story, this is it's a deep topic. I feel there's a separate conversation that we should be invited to discuss this. I feel that there's a lot to unwrap in this, because there are cases where, um, I'm traveling, I'll walk in. Verona is a good example. I went from Berlin to Verona by train. I came to the train station, and everybody in Verona that's a back of the kitchen staff is Punjabi Sikh. I don't know how it is, but all pizza shops and all the Italian restaurants and any other restaurant, all the back staff is Punjabi Sikh. I would walk on the street wearing my turban, and people would just come out and wish me, greet me, and say Sat Sri Akal, and they would ask me where I'm from. They would tell me their stories. One time I was walking with some of my hostel friends, and they thought I was famous. They were like, "Why is it that everybody's coming to you and greeting you and offering food or drinks to you?" I'm like, "I don't know." But I think the stories for them is that so many of those kids that left Punjab to go work in Western world, whether they started at the farms and they ended up in restaurants, is because they want to provide for their families. And if the only jobs they were going to get is if they have to cut their hair, they did it, right? Not judging them, but it's a tough world out there. There is no doubt about it. And I think kids are ruthless. I can handle any sort of discrimination that comes my way, but if it's a kid, whether it's my kid or another kid, and that kid is getting bullied, that's very hard to take. because it's not fixable, right? You can reprimand a small kid, but they will turn around and bully the kid again in the next. As someone had mentioned, that cutting the hair does not mean the bullying is going to stop. It's just hard. Kids are ruthless, not because by design. It's just the way things are. It's a mob mentality, and as long as there's more than one kid, they can go against any small petite kid. So I
I think it stops, but like my son, he was bullied so bad, really bad. The 3-on-1 in junior high, they came after him actually really badly. And this is now after he had been keeping his case for years and years, right? At the beginning, he didn't want to, then he's keeping it, you know. But he would get in fights weekly at some point, especially in middle school. Middle school, I think, is the worst. And it came down to a point where these 3 kids had cornered him, and he got in a. And I've always taught him, you know, like we don't fight first, as you like as we say it. But he had to eventually stand up for himself, and once he did, once they realized, like, okay, this kid, he's, you know, he's who he says he is, the bullying greatly decreased. And so then when his sisters went to school, it was less for them because he already went to the same school system, if that makes sense. But my older daughter has gotten in a physical altercation because of it. And so I just want to like support these kids, you know, and just remind them like who they are, like especially the kids that don't have high levels of sangat where they live. You're in the Bay Area, I'm in the Valley, and we go to Gurdwara Guru Nanak Prakash Sarovar Gurdwara, right? So there's camps, there's all kinds of things that my kids can go to find support, to find sangat. But these kids, like you're saying, that live in the middle of nowhere, it's really important, I think, that we get them online, we get them like virtual sangat, kind of like we're having now. It's so important for them so that they have the inner strength in themselves.
yeah, I would definitely want to see. I feel that I did see a TV program, whether it's Disney or someone else is starting to put Sikh small kids on TV programs. Maybe it was only in India, or maybe it's here. But I
Well, even I was shopping in Target today, and there was a Sardar as one of the models. So I was so surprised. I mean, you see that much more back in the UK, but
yeah,
even in Target now, that there's a thing.
yeah, we need to see more and make it more of a normalize this kind of, that hey, they're kids of all different races, and I think it's getting better. If personally, from the time I've been in this country, it might look like it's not going good. We might be taking sometimes 2 steps back, but I feel things are much better. I mean, from the point of view of getting jobs, getting apartments, going out socializing, going on dates, it's so much easier today than it was uh, a few years ago, maybe even a decade or two ago. So um,
I
I have an interesting perspective where I mean I'm a cut hair Sikh, and I look like an average white guy, and I've had quite a bit of pressure over the years of many Sikhs saying, "Stu, come on, when are you going to keep your cash? Like, what is your excuse?" And I don't have one. I can't really give you a good reason of why I haven't been chosen yet. I have tried to keep cash and wear a turban in the past, and I've got my own little sort of sob story of where I had a imposter syndrome, and I witnessed a fight going on in London, and I was watching it and enjoying these 2 guys kicking the hell out of each other and didn't intervene. And then when I caught the reflection of myself in the mirror, I was like, I was supposed to be the peacekeeper here, and I didn't do it. And that was the night that I took off the turban, and I really can't give a good reason of it's Hookham. Maharaj decides. I don't make the decisions. But I do really want to encourage any Sikhs that were going to listen to this later on YouTube or wherever it's posted, that Sikhi is a relationship between you and the Guru. It is not about taking on a new identity. I mean, I, forgive me if I offend anyone with what I'm saying there, but essentially, I want to encourage everyone to come into Sikhi, and quite possibly the unwritten culture is maybe not for everyone, but it doesn't mean that we're not Sikhs also. I'm sorry if that offends anyone.
It shouldn't offend anyone.
No, but I don't think that's what we're trying to bring out there. I think it's more of an issue like sacrificing who you really are for the sake of some false safety, if that makes sense. So it's not saying like you should have cash or whatever. No, it's saying like if you have cash and you love your cash and you're Amritdari and that's who you want to be, that's the choice that you made. Yeah. And then sacrificing that in order to keep a low profile. Yeah. That's like betraying who you really are. You are you with your short hair. I am me with my cash. That's what I committed to. And I don't think it's a good idea to sacrifice who you are, if that cash is you, for the sake of a false safety. Plus, like we said, it's no guarantee that it's going to stop any bullying. Know what I mean?
I think
That's so
everyone has made,
beautiful. So beautiful, yeah.
yes. And I think everyone has made really good points from each of their unique perspectives. But there's two things here. I guess one is if you have given your head to the Guru, you have to be prepared to lose it. So if someone, and I'm not placing a expectation on anyone, but if someone, originally when I started wearing the turban, I was the only turban wearing lady at the Gurdwara I was going to, and mostly the aunties, actually 99% of the aunties, they told me, or of the people who told me, don't wear that. People will think you're a terrorist. They will think you're this. They will think you're that. They might try to hurt you. They might try to kill you. I said, if someone kills me because of my turban, then so be it. So I'm not saying everyone needs to make that choice and that children can then make that choice. But ultimately, aren't we supposed to be without fear? And another thing is, we should be solution focused here. And I think the best thing that we can do is advocating for ourselves. The main issue is the schools and is the kids and keeping their identity and knowing who they are and being strong in that. And that starts at home and in the Sangat and in the Gurdwara. But we need to go to these schools and say to them, my child is being bullied. Would it be okay if I came in and explained to his classes who he is, who we are? And they can send out the permission slips because they do it for everything else. I have two kids that the kids can participate in it or not. But at least most of the people we have made aware. And slowly, as we make these efforts, these peaceful efforts to fight back, we will see the change that we want to see. We must do this seva to make moves forward.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautifully said. I would
100%
kiss
agree.
you on the cheeks right now.
100%
If I
agree.
could, I would kiss you on the cheeks because, yeah, you verbalized it really, really well. Really well. Thank you.
Don Guru Nanak.
Vaguji.
Why?
And it is so important, like we do end up having conversations, whether it makes any of us uncomfortable, then we can look inside ourselves and ask Maharaj why this conversation might make us uncomfortable or why what someone says might make us uncomfortable, and come into these types of spaces with a pure heart and a desire to gain further understanding. Um, I don't think from any of us there's anything said maliciously or anything intentionally harsh being said to anyone. And I think that as we continue to do this and build these groups and these spaces of safety, the better it's going to improve things, not just for ourselves, but for our kids, for our community as a whole, because we can pull knowledge from one another. And where five of us come together, that's a really blessed space. And even if it's virtual, we're here together trying to gain understanding of one another, trying to gain more understanding about Sikhi, sharing these experiences, this love with one another. And that's just so important. And this is just such a beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful to Stu and Charlene for starting this, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
why Guru? Yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I would like to just see less shaming of folks that are going through some tough times and have to make tough decisions, personally or for their kids, because we don't really know what their situation is. Right?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. I think I have many examples, but I think this is the main thing: is that it's very easy, and I've been there myself. As I've aged, I feel I've become more empathetic to people's stories and their lives. But personally, initially, when I was younger, I would feel hurt, and that hurt would come out as anger, that they betrayed us as a community and they left. We are suffering here, but you guys are now chilling with your cut cash or whatever. I don't feel that anymore, but it should be about how can we help them on their journey. And, somewhere along the way, people come to me and they're like, what, I've stopped wearing. I used to wear a turban. I've not worn it for a long time. Uh, can you tell me what size should I wear? Those are all. Those are questions that I get many times a year, not a month, but so off and on, I'll get a message from someone saying I haven't worn one for years. I want to wear it. So happens to me all the time.
You're absolutely right, and I think that as Sikhs and to become true Sikhs, one thing we need to do is understand that Sikhi is first and foremost love, but not just love. It is unconditional love, because the difference between divine love and human love is conditional. Divine love is unconditional. And if we want Gyan, we must become what is divine, and that is unconditional love, which doesn't leave room for judgments or condemnation of fellow human beings.
Agreed.
100% agree. 100% agree. And I've had to go on this journey. I think I don't know who else maybe has shared this perspective. Coming from a Christian background, condemnation is very much part of the culture, and holier than thou positioning is very much part of the culture. It's been ingrained in those of us that have been born into those environments. Um, Nitpicking other people, nitpicking how they do things, and trying to find where you're better, and pointing those things out and condemning people was very much ingrained in me, even though I was always much more on the open side. So that has been something I've even struggled in Sikhi with. And I don't know, those of you who come from a Christian background, if you experienced kind of the same struggle, consciously or subconsciously, trying to separate yourself from that. But when I'm personally talking about things, about my views or what we can do or what we need to do, it's purely coming from a space of um, love. Like I would never try to make someone feel shame or guilt or things of those nature. I just want to like encourage and say, you don't have to do this. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. Let's think of a different way. Let's switch the perspective. Let's a lot of these people that are making these choices are not really educated about Sikhi, and even them in their own generation maybe just kept their keys because that's what their parents had told them to do, and don't really have an understanding why they're doing it. So education and encouraging strength, that's where I'm coming from. And if I ever make anyone feel like I'm judging them, please tell me, because I am perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, no, and it's not even like I agree with Charlene. Like nobody should be shamed because they wear a turban or because they have cash, and nobody should be shamed because they don't. It's not about shaming. I read something somewhere, and I don't for the life of me remember where I read that. Like, yeah, there's basic rules to Sikhi. They are in Sri Guru Granth Sahib. Maybe if you go by 52 Hukam, maybe if you go by Rehat Nand Lal, even if you don't go by the 1945 one, there's Nand Lal. That's from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So those are the basic that we can base our Sikhi on. Um, I've lost my thread. I've lost my thread. Yeah. So I read something that said, okay, so as a Sikhi, based on those tenets, if we see something that we think does not fit into, say, like somebody who drinks alcohol, whatever, it's pretty clear about that. Yeah. Like, yes, we have a duty to maybe sit down with that brother, sister, father, mother, and say, like, hey, listen, like maybe you would like to consider doing what you're doing because yada yada. Yeah, you do that. But there comes a point where you have the right as a Sikh to walk away from a person as well. Yeah, when it starts to have a bad influence on your own, when it's upsetting your Sikhi, yeah, we have a right to walk away from that because it's just not their time to listen yet. And I thought that was like a good thing. Yes, we have a duty to see and talk about things that we perceive as wrong, but we also have the right to protect our own Sikhi if that gets out of hand. I don't know how you feel about that, Kamalvia.
I agree so much, and I've said, and Charlene's heard me say this before, I don't feel any right over any other person to police them. The only people that I feel a right, and not even a right, a duty, like a must, is people that outwardly identify as Sikh when they're doing things like drinking or adultery, these kinds of things, right? Like those are my brothers, those are my family, 100%. And I expect to be called out by my family if I'm doing something wrong. And I will call out my family members just as I do within my, home family if they're doing something that's hurting them or hurting us, right? Because if a drunkle, you see some Punjabi uncle drinking whatever, and there's a huge misconception, or not even a misconception, a misrepresentation by Punjabi Sikhs of who Sikhs are. Most outsiders think Punjabi people are drunkards, partiers, like they think this type of thing. Most Sikhs, because, they're tied together, right? So if I see someone, this has happened in Costco, tying a dastar and buying sharab, I will go talk to them and say, like, listen, you need to make a choice, right? Like, look who you are, look who you represent. You know, they don't just represent themselves, they represent me, they represent my kids, they represent our whole community, right? And I will talk to them. But if they don't want to listen, they don't want to listen. There's nothing I can do. But it's important, I think, with those of us that choose to identify as Sikh, to represent that properly. And so that's the only time I'll say something to someone.
Agree, because like you say, they are representing the whole of Sikhi. And if you take the meat, which we don't, but you also have to take the bones, as the saying goes. Like you can't just walk around representing something and then go against what it's supposed to be. You can't. Yeah, and that's not being judgmental. That's like you say, it's like family. If my son were to be doing something which I think would be, like you say, harmful for him or for society, I would call him out. I would call him out. I would say, like, hey, do you think this is a good idea? So it's no different for Khalsa. It's no different.
Yeah, and we don't have to care necessarily. Of course, drinking is bad for any human being, right? That's not good. It's just not good for your health, right? But as long as a person is not identifying as a Sikh, do what you want. Like, there's no judgment. I have family, good family. They drink, they party. I have no judgment whatsoever. Like, anybody, Punjabi people don't want to identify as Sikh, go do whatever you want. I don't, there's no judgment. But I've known too many situations. Like, I think Stu said something about, it was someone in here said something about they went through a phase walking around, like holier than thou, pretty much, and so many people walk around like that, and then, do really inappropriate things that go against Sikhi, either behind closed doors or even, out in public. So it's important that we say something.
And I'm sure, like, if you went to talk to that person, it would be out of, like you said, their family, and it's out of love, and but we have to look at what is the root cause of this disruption to their spirit, to their happiness. Like, coming up to them and asking them, like, hey, is everything okay? Like, are you all right? And then maybe able to have satsang with them right then. Like, if you come in soft and you come in loving, maybe you could, you know, not to sound Christian, like this is just like Christian verbiage, but to witness to them and say, have you done Simran? Have you, have you done that in a while? Because a lot of this drinking and all that, that's self-medication. And I'm not judging it because, went through a lot of things before I became a Sikh, and I was not being a smart person. And it was all self-medication because I was not spiritually fulfilled. I was not spiritually happy, and maybe just invite them, go slow or try to get their contact or whatever, don't be creepy, but, um, maybe just show some interest in them and not so much in what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, I think this is a huge topic as to why people choose substances. What are they escaping from? What is their life like? What does it do for them? Are they numb because of the alcohol? Do they find joy because outside of alcohol there's no joy? There's so many angles to it. I don't drink alcohol, but I have a father that drank all the time, and now he's suffering with bad health. And he's come to a point where he now blames the alcohol companies for his illness, not himself. He believes that there should have been a warning on the alcohol bottle. I'm like, there was a warning. You just didn't read it. Right? It's just, but this is all, there is so many things that are people go through, right? I'm not trying to defend them, but people use some people use meditation, some people use cycling, some people go swimming. There's so many ways to handle tough situations in life, to get some quiet alone time. But some people only find uh, they think that's the only option. They just have to be informed, and they have to have a community, because a lot of times people drink because of peer pressure. I've had peer pressure since I got to the United States. You're a Sikh man. You should know. You should be drinking all the time. All Sikhs drink. I'm like, no, not all men.
Yeah,
All
this is
Sikhs
what I'm
drink,
talking about. This exactly.
right? And they're like, what kind of Sikh are you? You don't party and drink. I'm like, I'll dance, but I don't need to drink and dance. I can dance without drinking. So have people tried? They've tried and they've failed and they've disappeared. They've like given up. And now they don't even bother. If anything, a lot of those people who are still in my life are so respectful that they will not drink in front of me. Right? They'll say, you're sober. We'll have a meal with you as a sober person. I'll go and drink later by myself. Right? That's the position, is that they become sober in front of me. So
No.
the reverse has
They're
happened.
selectively sober.
Right? But a lot of times people they think it's medication, right? As perhaps Charlene, you might have used that word. We don't know. And it's so hard to strike that conversation with a stranger who's buying alcohol. Where I can go on and on about this topic. My hurt is not the person buying the alcohol. My hurt is the community members that are selling alcohol. I'm going on record. And
Oh,
if this
100%, Budgie. I agree 100%. There's so
they
many Sardars owning liquor stores. What the hell
right,
is actually going
and
on?
then they take that liquor store money and then they give it to the gurdwara as
As
their.
poison.
I
Bro.
This is so wrong. I mean, how is that even legit business? I thought you have to, when you do seva and you earn an honest living,
Kirkani.
right? This should be honest living. I understand, but people say might be selling alcohol is also not honest living. I don't know. It's a very fine line, but I have a problem both the ways, the user and the seller, right? But it's so hard to have that conversation. It's am I put on earth to have that conversation is often my question, right? I'm happy to have engaged that person. Am I going to build a relationship with them just so I can get them off of alcohol? I got to worry about my own family first, right? If you take care of your immediate community members, your immediate families, we'll have all our problems solved, right? But a lot of times we don't even take care of our own people, myself included. Clearly I could have worked with my father, but he's now health wise he cannot drink. If he could, he would have still done it, I bet.
Does anyone else ever run into the conversation, if ever approaching someone about owning a liquor store, the topic of Punjabi Sikhs or Sikhs, period, owning liquor stores? Is the retort always, well, we're not partaking, we're just selling?
Yeah, this
Well,
conversation.
then you're enabling. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Goody.
No, I'm just saying I've had this conversation. That was it.
But you're enabling. You're enabling, and
Yeah,
you're enabling. Yeah. So that's when I mean, you have to pick your battles, and you can't win them all, but you have to at least try and not go that route. Like for example, I worked as a picker in Kroger, and I was supposed to pick alcohol. And I went and I explained to them, I cannot do that, because it's not like touching, oh my God. No, it's just I'm enabling somebody to consume alcohol. And I don't want to be that person. And you'd be surprised at how understanding people are if you take the time to explain why you're not willing to do something, or why like you can't do it. Yeah. You have to at least try and make people see why you're refusing something. And in the case of a liquor store, that's like an easy choice. You decide to open a liquor store because you want to make a lot of money, because it gives you good money. But there are alternatives. Yeah. If it's a job in a liquor store, there are other jobs. Yeah. That are not in a liquor store that would like, I think probably a good advice that I got was when I took Amrit. Like the one of my punch pyare, he told me, don't eat meat, don't eat chicken, don't eat fish, don't eat, like eggs, whatever. But if you're starving, eat meat, eat fish, eat chicken, eat eggs. Yeah. If you're not in a situation where you would be starving if you didn't work in that liquor store or open that liquor store, if there are alternatives, you have a moral obligation toward yourself, who you are as a person. Like if you're that amritari, and or even if you're not amritari, but you want to live like that, then you have an obligation toward yourself to find an alternative. There are alternatives. You don't have to.
Hello, is everyone being polite? Are
Yeah,
we
no,
still?
I wanted to say a comment. There's one of my favorite gas stations that are where I take my motorcycle for refueling is owned by a Sikh family. I have a feeling that they don't sell hard liquor, but they do sell cigarettes
Yeah.
and beer. And I'm gonna try to talk to him and see if I can just have a one-on-one I've had many conversations with him, so he knows who I am. But I'm going to try and see if he's going to give me like a 20-minute, 30-minute, no recording, just man to man, human to human conversation about what are his choices, right? Why does he sell cigarettes, or why does he sell? Is it a big part of his earnings? Will his business go down drastically if he stops selling those? That kind of question, right? And what else can he sell to make up for that? So I'm pretty sure he's going to be open to it. But I'll report back, at least to Charlene, if I have this conversation with him. Does that make sense?
A good example I like to use. There's a
Okay.
lady here in the valley, and in Madeira, and she owns a gas station, car wash, and like oil shop. They have a liquor license. She has one bottle of wine there to maintain the liquor license. It's not for sale. It's just hidden somewhere in a cabinet. She's sick. Her and her husband opened this, and they do not sell alcohol or cigarettes, and they had a very successful business. So I did work there at one point, and it was a very good feeling to know that you can work in these spaces without needing to do that.
Oh, cool. Do you know what they did? Were they selling food, Punjabi food, or something else to kind of create a
So
lot
I
of?
haven't been there in a while. I know she still does own it. They had the car wash attached, so that's another way to make the money. They ended up actually pretty much making their drinks, like the energy drinks and sodas and waters and all this stuff, just just enough cheaper than everywhere else to where everyone would come for their drinks, all like the field workers, everything like that. They knew that that spot had like the out of all the gas stations had the least expensive like beverages, right? And then now she does have hot food there, candies, different stuff like what a gas station would have. But there was no beer, no hard alcohol, no cigarettes at all. I think now they started doing lotto because she wasn't doing lotto, and I think maybe she has a manager in there now. But still, no cigarettes, no alcohol from last time I went in. And so it's just kind of like trusting, right? Trusting on Maharaj that, that it's going to come, you know?
Yeah, thank you. That's good inspiration, or at least a good story. Heartwarming.
Well, I think this has been incredible. Thank you all so much for coming. I really do. I think we should do this again. Like, if you would be willing, maybe next month, Charlene. What do you think about potentially reformatting the show to having an open conversation like this?
Yeah, let's definitely collaborate again. And I would say you are all welcome to invite maybe someone you feel is like-minded to join the conversation that would have a lot to offer in you know in these types of veins. And let's just keep uh expanding the sangat. You know, it's slowly but surely.
Yeah, this is a good space. I feel we talked a lot about different topics. My only recommendation is that in some topics we might have gone into more of a complaint mode or a rant mode, and perhaps we look at solutions. And I think we talked about the podcast situation or the kids situation where we can have a support group for parents. That could be a very small outcome. Perhaps someone can say, you know what, let me just start this, or maybe there is already a Facebook group and we can mention that Facebook group that's a support group for parents, Sikh parents. And I think there is, if I'm not mistaken, that there is a Sikh parents or Sikh mothers or something like that Facebook group. But again, it should be more of what's the problem, what are the what are the reasons we are seeing that this problem exists, or problem means slash concern or issue. Uh, why does it exist? How can we help the fellow Sikhs that are going through that problem or issue uh, overcome those issues?
And also, like I mentioned, I know parents who have done this, going to the school and asking to be able to present and educate about the case and the podcast and a little bit about the faith, and school can send out permission slips or whatever, whoever doesn't want to participate, so that everyone is comfortable. But that's another way we could take action, make solutions. We don't want to complain. I think people just want to voice their experience in a genuine way, and that it did feel negative to them. And then, yeah, just like I mentioned and you mentioned, like, okay, this is such a good platform for us to broadcast solutions that we know about or work out solutions. Absolutely.
Yeah, and here in California, along those lines, I believe there is a Seva organization that does talks in schools. So I'll look for that resource. I'm part of a few like Sikh mother groups here. So I'll look forward to bringing some resources with me maybe next month. And so
Share it
you
on
can
the
share those.
Facebook page.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Would you guys like to do a little Simran?
I'm up for it.
Let's do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Waheguru, Waheguru,
Vaheguru,
Waheguru,
Vaheguru,
Waheguru, Waheguru,
Waheguru.
Vaheguru.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you, everyone. That was beautiful.
Thank you, everyone. And please take care of yourselves, your families, your communities. And Charlene, thanks for putting this space together.
No, thank all of you, especially Stu. He's our co-producer, and
Thank you,
yeah,
Stu.
let's keep communicating and make some more content and reach some more people.
Dan Guruji. Waheguru.
Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru.
Oh, Ji Ki Fateh.
Fateh. God bless you. Thank you.